My name is Tamara, and I guess you could say I'm a widow. It's been a year since my husband passed away. It's a title I never thought I'd have, but life has a funny way of changing things when you least expect it. Travis and I were deeply in love, the kind of love you read about in romantic books. We met in college, where we were figuring out love and life together. Travis was amazing, a charming guy with a smile that could light up even the darkest day. We were that couple everyone secretly envied, and life was good. We thought we had all the time in the world. But let me tell you about Travis' background. He had a tough childhood. His dad passed away when he was just a little boy, leaving a hole in his heart that never quite healed. His mom, Carolina, was something else, and I mean that in the worst way. Instead of being there for Travis when he needed her, she was off chasing her own love stories. Travis was practically invisible to her. Carolina remarried a wealthy man named Frederic, who lived in a completely different world. She cut ties with Travis like he was nothing, focusing only on her new husband's money and the fancy life they had. Frederic bought her a house, cars, and many other things, and she acted like Travis was just a nuisance. It was heartbreaking to see Travis struggle with her indifference. When Travis proposed to me, our life was stable and secure. It seemed like the perfect time to share the news with his mom, hoping it might help heal their broken relationship. So we went to her fancy mansion, full of hope. But when we got there, she couldn't have cared less. It was like Travis was a stranger to her. She barely acknowledged us, let alone our big news. It was clear she didn't care about us at all. That visit was eye-opening. When we stood at her doorstep, her coldness was shocking. "Hey Mom, it's me. It's been a while," Travis said. "Oh, Travis, why are you here? And who is this?" Carolina replied, "This is Tamara, Mom, my fiancé. Nice to finally meet you, Carolina." "I've heard a lot about you," I said. "Fiancé, huh? You're engaged, and that's why you're bothering me?" Carolina asked. "Mom, we thought you'd want to know." "I've missed you," Travis said. "Missed me, Travis? It's been years." "I've moved on," Carolina replied coldly. "Mom, please just listen. We're getting married soon, and we'd love for you to be part of our lives. We live just half an hour away," Travis pleaded. "Rebuild what exactly, Travis? I'm busy. I have a new family and a new life. I don't need reminders of my past," she snapped. "We're not trying to remind you of anything, Carolina. We just thought you should know about our wedding plans," I added. "Wedding plans? How quaint. But I've got plans of my own, plans that don't involve you or Travis." "I'm sorry, kid," she said dismissively. "Mom, why are you doing this?" "We're your family," Travis said, his voice full of pain. "Travis, I don't have time for this. My husband Fred will be back soon. He's the one who matters now," Carolina said. Her words cut deep, rejecting her own son like that. How could a mother be so selfish? Travis was devastated, and I felt his pain. But life went on, and we got married. Our wedding day was magical, and as I walked down the aisle toward Travis, I knew I was making the right choice when I married Travis. We exchanged vows, promising to stick together no matter what. Our first year of marriage was filled with beautiful moments. We lived in a cozy little apartment that we rented while saving up for a house. It was just the two of us, so the apartment seemed perfect. Travis was the most loving and caring husband. He would surprise me with breakfast in bed, and every day felt special. We created little routines together, lazy Sunday mornings with pancakes and cuddles, and adventurous Saturday nights trying out new restaurants. Travis always remembered the little things, like how I liked my coffee and my favorite flower. We talked about our dreams, our future, and how we wanted to build a family together. Our first wedding anniversary was supposed to be a magical evening. I went all out with scented candles, flowers, everything. I was just waiting for Travis to come home from work so we could enjoy a fancy meal and toast to our love. But life had other plans. Instead of Travis, the phone rang, and it wasn't good news. It was the police. telling me that Travis had been in a car accident on his way home. All those romantic plans, all the effort I put into making the evening special, it all fell apart. The dinner sat there, growing cold, while I rushed to the hospital with my heart full of fear. I paced the hospital corridors, praying that Travis would be okay. But the doctors gave me the heartbreaking news. There was nothing they could do. They said he had a day or two left at most. It was a gut-wrenching moment. They told me I could go in and talk to him one last time. When I entered his room, I was overwhelmed with emotion. We held hands, tears streaming down our faces. It was all in God's hands now, and I clung to the hope that a miracle might save him. Tamara, I don't know if I'm going to make it, baby, Travis said, his voice weak. The doctors say it's touch and go. Travis, don't say that. You're going to pull through. You have to, I replied, trying to hold back my tears. Tamara, I love you so much. Whatever happens, just promise me that you'll be happy and that you'll find love again. I couldn't have had a better life. Thank you. Travis, please. There's something else, he said, his voice faint. I bought us a house. It was meant to be our anniversary gift. It's a really nice one, in a great neighborhood, right next to my mom's place. I held on to some hope, I guess. I thought maybe if I was close to her, she might let me be part of her life again. I'm sorry, I feel like a fool now. Oh, honey, don't be sorry. You tried. The house is yours now. You're the owner. Do whatever feels right. I understand if you don't want a daily reminder of my mom, so you can sell it or live there. It's up to you. Travis, you're not going anywhere, I said, clutching his hand tightly as tears streamed down my face. I knew I had to make the painful call to Carolina. After all, Travis was her son, and the doctors had made it clear that he didn't have much time left, maybe just a day or two. I dialed her number, dreading the conversation. Carolina, it's Tamara, Travis's wife. I need to talk to you about Travis. He's been in a terrible accident, and the doctors don't have good news. They say he may not have much time left. Oh really? That's so sad. I'm sorry for him. I can send you the hospital address, she replied, almost dismissively. You don't know what I've been through lately. Frederic and I got a divorce, she continued, as if that was the most important thing. I'm sorry to hear that, Carolina, but Travis is your son, and he's in critical condition, I said, trying to hold back my frustration. I told Carolina she should come visit Travis at the hospital. Her response, I have a therapist appointment, so I won't be able to make it. Carolina, he's your son. How can you be so cold? He needs his mother right now, I said, shocked. Look, Travis and I haven't had a good relationship for years. He chose his path, and I chose mine. I don't see why I should drop everything now just because he's in trouble. It's about his life. Don't you want to see your son one last time? I pleaded. I don't know. Like I said, I had a lot on my plate right now. My condolences, Samantha. I'll try to be there for the funeral. Carolina, it's Tamara. You don't want to regret not being there for him when he needs you the most. I've already given my answer. Goodbye, she said coldly. I couldn't believe how selfish she was. Travis was fighting for his life, and she didn't even care. A few days later, the unimaginable happened. Travis passed away. It was a gut-wrenching moment that left me numb and lost. Surprisingly, Travis had a will in place, and he entrusted me with making arrangements for his funeral. In his will, he left me some of his assets, which was both comforting and heartbreaking. Even more surprising, he left a decent amount of money to his mom, Carolina. As for the new house, it wasn't mentioned in the will, but the seller had already transferred it to my name, so it was mine completely. Dealing with Travis' death was incredibly difficult, and I couldn't handle the funeral arrangements and paperwork on my own. That's when I turned to my sister, Kelly. Without hesitation, she said she'd help me through it all. The day of the funeral finally came, and it was as gloomy as our moods. Friends, family, and everyone who knew Travis gathered to pay their respects. It was a tearful service, with people sharing stories about him. Amid all that sadness, I couldn't help but hope to see Carolina there. But she didn't show up. I couldn't let it ruin the day, though. Grief had already taken a strong hold on me. After the service, we headed to the reception. People shared stories, gave condolences, and there was food. The will reading was supposed to happen during this time, and I had honestly given up on the idea of Carolina showing up. I was trying not to break down when, lo and behold, Carolina strolled in. "Thanks for showing up so early," I said sarcastically. "You've got quite the alcohol scent about you." "Just a few drinks with a possible future flame," she replied casually. "Seriously, you missed your son's funeral service for that?" "Oh, come on, sweetie. I needed something to soak up the booze. I felt a bit queasy after all that." "Carolina, I can't believe you. You couldn't be bothered to show up for Travis' funeral, and now you're here drunk for the will reading." "Honey, I don't do funerals. They're such a downer. But I'm here for the important stuff," she winked at me. I couldn't believe the nerve of this woman. Despite Carolina's outrageous behavior, it was time for the will reading, so I gathered everyone around. As the executor, I took a deep breath and began reading Travis' will. The room was filled with hushed anticipation, and Carolina seemed particularly eager. "Ladies and gentlemen, as the executor of Travis' will, I'm here to carry out his final wishes. Travis left behind some assets and his thoughts on how they should be distributed. Additionally, Travis allocated a separate account for his mother, Carolina. In it, he left a sum of $5,000. $5,000? That's all he left for me? Travis, my boy, you truly were a poor soul, a loser even in death," Carolina sneered. Everyone was shocked by her cruel comments. "Carolina, this is not the time or place for such remarks. Travis had his reasons for what he chose to leave behind," I said firmly. "Seriously, was he even a lawyer or just pretending? I can't believe he didn't have any property or savings and only had that little bit stashed away. It's like he was good for nothing. Looks like the poor guy died from poverty." "You're clearly drunk, Carolina. You should leave," I said, my patience wearing thin. "Oh, you bet I should leave. He was a lassie excuse for a son, and I don't want anything to do with him," she said as she stormed out. As the hours went by, I couldn't shake the memory of that messed up day. Carolina's heartless act at Travis will reading still stung like a bad hangover. My sister Kelly came over, and we both vented our frustration and sorrow about Carolina, who had shown no decency for her own flesh and blood. Time moved on, and I started thinking about the house Travis had bought for us. The idea of living next door to Carolina was unbearable. I couldn't stomach the thought. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I got in touch with the real estate agent who had been dealing with Travis's house purchase. Luckily, Travis hadn't completed all the paperwork before he passed away, so with the agent's help, I finally took the keys to the house. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing this was supposed to be our new home, but it was also a painful reminder that Travis was gone. One day, I gathered the courage to visit the house. As I walked up the driveway, emotions hit me hard. It wasn't just a house. It was a mansion, much grander than I had expected. Next door, Carolina's house seemed tiny in comparison. I didn't expect to see such a huge, beautiful place. As I walked through the door of what was supposed to be our new home, I couldn't stop thinking about the life Travis and I could have built together. The pain was unbearable as I explored every corner of the house, haunted by memories of what could have been. I realized that I couldn't live there without Travis. Determined to sell the mansion, I stepped outside. That's when I heard a familiar voice. "What are you doing here?" "None of your business," I replied. "Oh my God, there was no house here some time ago. Don't tell me you're the buyer of this place. It would be the biggest joke on earth with that little money your fiancé left you. Can't you feel any sympathy for your own son, who talks like that?" "Sympathy for that loser. I should throw a party instead." "Carolina, can't you cut the insults? Travis is gone. Show a little bit of respect." Respect? Travis was a fool, just like his father. You and he made quite a pair." Her words hit me hard, not just because they were harsh, but because she was his mom. Her cruel comments replayed in my head, making the pain worse. So I decided not to sell a house after all. I was going to move into the mansion, not just to show off or compete with Carolina, but because I needed a fresh start. Maybe this was what Tragus wanted, so I decided to do it for both of us. Packing up my stuff from our old apartment was tough. Everything had a memory attached to it, a piece of Travis. I wrapped up his photos, his favorite books, and all the little things we had collected over the years. When I stepped into the new house, it felt like a dream Travis was supposed to be a part of. The day I settled into the new house, I knew what I had to do. I baked a batch of Travis's favorite blueberry muffins, put on a nice sundress, and headed next door to face Carolina. I wanted to give her the news myself. She opened the door. "Tamara, what on earth are you doing here? What is this?" "Hi, neighbor. I just moved in, and I thought I'd bring over some muffins I baked." "What? How? When? Why?" "Let me break it down for you, Carolina. Tragus bought this house for us as an anniversary gift. He probably used his savings." "Travis did that. Why didn't I know about it?" "Because, Carolina, you were too busy with your new husband and counting his money." "Tamara, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. You've always been absent, from not visiting Tragus in the hospital during his last moments to skipping his funeral service and just showing up for the will reading." "I made some mistakes." "Some mistakes. Carolina, you've been cruel and disgusting. You ridiculed Travis when you found out he left you very little in his will. You didn't even give him the respect he deserved." "I never realized how much I hurt him until it was too late. Please, Tamara, I'm genuinely sorry." "Sorry now that you found out your son had some money left for you. Love should have been unconditional. You know what, Carolina? Enjoy the rest of your life seeing my face every day as a constant reminder of what you did to your son." It's been a whole year since Travis passed away. They say time can heal wounds, but that doesn't mean the scars disappear. I'm learning to carry on, step by step. Carolina, on the other hand, is spiraling down a different path. It's hard not to notice her from my home right next to hers. She's been using alcohol as a crutch, drowning her sorrows, or maybe her guilt, who knows. Every time we run into each other, she has a look of guilt, shame, and regret on her face, and I can't help but feel a bit of sympathy for her at times. She missed out on so much when Tragus was alive, and her absence during his darkest moments, even at his funeral, is something I can't forget or forgive. One thing I've learned through all of this is that being a bad person doesn't get you very far. Sure, you might gain some material things, but you lose something much more valuable, yourself. People who are dishonest, cruel, or selfish might seem like they're winning in the short term, but in the grand scheme of things, they don't last long. It's the ones who show love, compassion, and kindness who leave a lasting legacy. So my advice to anyone reading this is simple: be a good person. It might not always be easy, but it's worth it in the end.
I'm going to have a baby. We've always wanted kids since we got married. I happily shared the news with my husband, Bob, expecting him to be thrilled, considering all the challenges we faced. But his reaction caught me off guard. It felt like I had been pushed off a cliff. My name is Catherine, and I'm 40 years old. Bob confessed his feelings to me, and we got married when I was 30. I'd always dreamed of having a happy family, surrounded by a loving husband and smiling children. Despite my serious nature, I hesitated to get into a relationship, and before I knew it, my 20s were almost over, making me increasingly anxious. Both my sisters were already married, adding to the pressure. When Bob confessed, I quickly responded, and we started dating. We worked together, and since I knew Bob's personality from our interactions, I felt positive about him. Despite only dating for a year, I was drawn to his cheerful and easygoing nature, something I lacked. Believing we could complement each other well, we decided to tie the knot. You know, I'm usually overly optimistic. I think we need someone serious like you, Catherine, I believe with you, we could lead a stable life and make a great couple." Hearing these words from Bob meant a lot to me, as I had always been a bit self-conscious about my serious nature. While we weren't head over heels in love, I could confidently say there was love between us, and I believed we could have a happy married life. After getting married, we both had jobs. Being in our 30s, we decided it was time to think about having children. Since we held senior positions, our salaries were quite high. We had our hearts set on having 2 children and eagerly looked forward to the day they would become part of our lives. Until then, we committed to working hard to secure a good future for our family. However, even after 2 years of marriage, I wasn't pregnant. In the first year, we shrugged off the disappointment, reminding ourselves that having a child is a blessing that can't be rushed. "We've only been married for a year. Let's not hurry things," Bob would joke, lifting my spirits whenever I felt down. So at that time, I believed it would happen soon and looked forward to it without anxiety. However, as the second year passed, the reality that I still wasn't pregnant began to weigh on us. Bob, too, became somber, expecting that by now, we would naturally have a child. Our shared anxieties led to disagreements, and heated arguments became a part of our routine. Considering our age, the fact that we hadn't conceived yet was concerning. Bob suggested we get checked out at a hospital once we cooled off from our argument. I agreed, thinking it was a practical approach. Both of us underwent tests, and fortunately, there were no health issues, easing my worries about potential fertility problems. The doctor suggested it was simply a matter of timing, so we continued our efforts, diligently following any advice given. Despite our efforts, tensions increased and arguments became more frequent. Our home, once envisioned as a happy, smile-filled place, now had minimal interaction. However, I refused to give up, believing that once we had a child, the life I had imagined would become a reality. Finally, after 10 years of marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. While my sisters had already started their families, and I had been envious for a long time, now I too was expecting. The moment I heard the test results, overwhelmed with joy and the realization of a long-held dream, I broke down in tears for an extended period. The inability to conceive had been a source of sadness, but now I felt an overwhelming sense of happiness. Though we initially wanted 2 children, at this point, I was content with just one, as long as the baby was born healthy. That was all that mattered as I lovingly caressed my belly, wishing for a healthy child. After leaving the hospital, brimming with happiness, I couldn't resist grinning as I immediately called Bob to share the news. However, it appeared he was at work and abruptly ended the call, seeming a bit curt. I felt a twinge of guilt for calling during work hours and realized my excitement got the better of me. So I decided to wait and tell him about the pregnancy when he got home and had a chance to settle down. "I had a checkup today and learned I'm pregnant. We're finally going to have a baby." I intended to deliver the news calmly, but my happiness overflowed, and I excitedly shared it with him. After a decade of wanting a child and now being pregnant, I expected him to be thrilled. However, his reaction didn't align with my expectations. "Really? At our age?" He seemed irritated, adding, "Do you even realize how old you are? You're 40, right? There are risks with having a child at this age." The doctor had mentioned this, but I was assured that with proper precautions, everything would be fine. True, having my first child at an older age presented challenges, but I was prepared for it. I had made up my mind to have this baby. Upon expressing my feelings, my husband only appeared more upset, saying, "Raising a kid at 40, and we don't even know if the baby will be born without any health issues. It might have disabilities." He believed that with advanced maternal age, only children with problems are born, and he didn't want to deal with caregiving. He argued that he wants care in his old age, but doesn't want to be burdened with taking care of a child with special needs. It felt like he saw our child as merely a convenient tool. "It's your child too, you know? How can you say such things after all we've been through? We're finally blessed. Aren't you happy?" I retorted in frustration, expressing my commitment to cherish our child, disabilities or not. In his anger, he blamed me for the delayed pregnancy and even threw out the suggestion of divorce. "That's it. Let's get a divorce." Initially, I struggled to comprehend my husband's words and instinctively asked him to repeat it. Why would such a comment follow the joyful news of my pregnancy? What did he mean? He then proceeded to express his dissatisfaction with our life together. Now at 40, he felt the pregnancy was overdue. My constant seriousness, which he once thought suitable for marriage, now seemed like a mistake. My husband's harsh words hurt, but some of them strangely resonated with me. Over the past decade, I had noticed issues with his character despite being initially drawn to his cheerful nature. I had planned to overlook these flaws and continue our life together, but now it seemed impossible. He tended to take things lightly, and his cheerfulness had turned into frivolousness. Quarrels over various matters, not just the child, had cooled our marital relationship. I sensed a misalignment in our values, and this incident solidified my realization. I wanted a child, so I endured our differences, but now I think it's enough. I'd rather not have a father who doesn't cherish his child. When he insisted on the divorce, I agreed. A week after confirming the pregnancy, our divorce was finalized. During this process, my husband demanded alimony, claiming I had wasted 10 years of his life. Legally, there was no reason to pay him. In fact, I countered that if anything, I should receive alimony. He seemed to abandon that idea, but then he refused to pay child support. Initially, I wanted him to contribute for the sake of the child, but his stubbornness made it challenging. Frustrated and wanting a quick separation, I decided to seek child support under the condition that he would have no contact with the child. In terms of our assets, since we both worked and split monthly expenses evenly, and we rented our home, there was no property division. This allowed me to take all of my savings without any dispute. Knowing that he had spent a significant amount on his hobbies, keeping the savings private was crucial. Although I never disclosed the exact amount, he agreed to forego property division swiftly. I had been prudent with my savings, providing me with a sense of security that they would last about 5 years, even if I couldn't work post-divorce. Packing my belongings, I promptly returned to my parents' home in Nebraska, where both were in their 80s but in good health. They warmly welcomed me back, expressing joy about my pregnancy. Despite the disappointment from my ex-husband, witnessing my parents' happiness finally brought me relief. I was determined to ensure the safety and well-being of my child. My son was born without complications, alleviating my concerns about giving birth at an older age. He was a healthy boy without any disabilities. My siblings, who already had families of their own, also provided care. With the support of my parents, raising the child went smoothly, and I named him John. Having left my previous job, and with financial help from my severance and parents, I focused on raising John. Until he turned about a year old, I later found a new job. Despite being busy and often tired, all my free time was dedicated to John. His smiles rejuvenated me, and although he was a bit introverted and quiet, he loved it when I read storybooks to him. Showing enthusiasm for learning even at a young age, he eagerly started learning letters when given a workbook at age 5. Worried that his seriousness might hinder making friends in elementary school, he surprised me by joyfully attending school and playing with friends after classes. John wasn't initially very athletic, but in middle school he developed a dream for his future and underwent significant changes. Determined to overcome his weaknesses, he became more passionate about his studies. I worried about his intense focus. But as time passed, he not only improved physically but also joined a sports team in high school, eventually winning awards in competitions. Witnessing him, once not very athletic, shine in competitions filled me with pride. In college, he excelled in both academics and sports, becoming more sociable and enjoying time with friends. He seemed to be a well-rounded individual both personally and in terms of capabilities. I felt there was little for me to worry about, that I remained vigilant and ready to support and protect John if needed. Fortunately, for now, it didn't seem necessary. Finally, he landed the job he always wanted and moved out, but we kept in regular touch. Occasionally, he visited with gifts, helped around the house, and remained considerate. He turned out to be a wonderful son. Despite not being the best father, he grew up to be a remarkable young man, and I couldn't be prouder. After 25 years since the divorce, I turned 65 and retired. I had worked hard to ensure I wouldn't be a burden on my son in my later years. Despite retiring, I remained energetic and planned to keep working. When I shared this with my son, he wanted to properly celebrate my retirement and upcoming birthday, suggesting we go out for a meal. Aware of his busy schedule, only in his second year at work, I told him that the thought alone was enough. However, he insisted, saying, "I owe you a lot, Mom. I've gotten used to work, and I've got more time now. Don't worry about me." Since high school, he had consistently expressed gratitude and thanked me for everything. Each time, I was overwhelmed by how wonderfully he had grown. Starting work seemed to have given him a renewed sense of gratitude. "You faced challenges as a single mom, but you always supported me in everything I wanted to try. Thanks to you, I'm living my dream now." My son expressed his gratitude, feeling that he had a comfortable childhood despite the struggles. It felt like something any parent would do, but hearing his appreciation, I couldn't refuse. Overwhelmed with emotion, I agreed, and we planned to have dinner at a restaurant he had booked, followed by shopping for my birthday present. I looked forward to the day. On the chosen day, I dressed up a bit and went out with my son. We strolled to the restaurant, chatting happily, and I felt proud looking at my grown-up son. Raising him on my own was a decision I made, with support from my parents and siblings making it bearable. He used to be so small, but now he had grown significantly, I thought, looking up at my son who was now taller than me. Over time, his face had matured, and as I noticed the passing days, I felt happiness. But then, I suddenly felt like a bucket of cold water was thrown over me. "Catherine, long time no see." Initially not recognizing the voice, I realized it was my aged ex-husband. He was with a woman who looked younger than him. From a distance, he called out and deliberately approached us. "What do you want?" I responded coldly, not wanting to engage with him on that fine day. After our divorce, we hadn't communicated at all, so I wondered what he wanted now. As I looked at him skeptically, my ex-husband came closer, took a long look at me and my son, and then laughed mockingly. "You still have that sour look on your face," he said. "Is that the kid we had when we divorced? Still taking care of him, huh? Good for you." Assuming our son had some disability, he began bragging about his own life without being asked. He informed me he had remarried soon after our divorce and now had a daughter in college, boasting about her success in a prestigious university. He also boasted about his new wife, who was 10 years younger than him, and their quick expansion of the family. "Our marriage was a complete waste of time," he boasted, seemingly approaching me just to mock me. Though infuriated, I wanted to leave, claiming I had plans. But he wasn't done yet. Ignoring my evident annoyance, he began to mock my son. "Is he disabled and a lot of trouble? Can he even get a job? Looks like you'll have no one to help you in your old age. Tough break." While I could handle insults about myself, insults about my son were unbearable. I raised my hand to hit him, but my son stopped me. "Mom, it's not worth our time dealing with him. Let's go." Remaining calm, my son held me back, disregarding my ex-husband and showing concern for me. There was a time when my son was curious about his father. I had promised to tell him about our divorce once he was an adult, and I had. If it seemed he had decided to consider himself as not knowing his father. My son replied, "What's with that attitude towards your dad? My mother raised me. I don't have a father." This seemed to trigger my ex-husband, who hadn't been paying child support, to attempt lecturing my son. Unfazed, my son looked at him coldly and retorted, "Are you unemployed? You really are a fool, just like you look." My ex-husband responded with mocking laughter. Remaining composed, my son calmly stated, "I work as a diplomat." When he mentioned the prestigious university he attended, my ex-husband looked shocked. It was a well-known and challenging institution, recognized for its prestige. Becoming a diplomat requires significant education and a good character, making it a demanding profession to pursue. This is why my son aimed for prestigious universities, providing a better chance of achieving his goal. My ex-husband clearly hadn't anticipated this revelation, and disbelief twisted his face. Witnessing my calm son and my stunned ex-husband, I finally felt at peace. It reassured me that divorcing him had been the right decision. I was certain that if I had stayed with him for the sake of our son, it would have negatively impacted our son's upbringing. The woman accompanying my ex-husband appeared very surprised, not just by my son's achievements, but also by his appearance. When my ex-husband resumed hurling abuses, she promptly intervened. "Hey, what's up? You shouldn't talk to this person like that. Let's get going." Reprimanding her ex-husband, who seemed oblivious, she led him away. I wondered if she knew my son based on her demeanor. When I inquired, my son claimed he didn't know her. Unable to comprehend, I decided to let go of the matter concerning my ex-husband and savor the moment. Afterward, I celebrated with my son and thoroughly enjoyed the day. I thought I wouldn't have any dealings with my ex-husband anymore, but a week later he called. I hadn't changed my phone number when I switched to a smartphone, intending to keep my ex-husband's number for a while and delete it later. However, with parenting and work, I had forgotten about it completely. Surprised by the call and considering we had nothing to talk about, I debated whether to answer. Out of curiosity, wondering why he would call now after all this time, I ultimately decided to pick up. My son responded, "What's with that attitude towards your dad? My mother raised me. I don't have a father." This seemed to provoke my ex-husband, who hadn't contributed child support, into attempting to lecture my son. Unfazed, my son looked at him coldly and retorted, "Are you unemployed? You really are a fool, just like you look." My ex-husband responded with mocking laughter. Maintaining composure, my son calmly stated, "I work as a diplomat." When my son mentioned the challenging university he attended, my ex-husband looked shocked. It was a renowned institution, recognized for its prestige, even by those unfamiliar with it. Becoming a diplomat requires significant education and a good character, making it a challenging profession to enter, even for aspiring individuals. That's why my son aimed for prestigious universities, offering a better chance of achieving his goal. My ex-husband clearly hadn't anticipated this revelation, and disbelief twisted his face. Observing my calm son and my stunned ex-husband, I finally felt at peace. It reassured me that divorcing him had been the right decision. I was certain that if I had stayed with him for the sake of our son, it would have negatively impacted our son's upbringing. The woman accompanying my ex-husband appeared very surprised, not just by my son's achievements, but also by his appearance. When my ex-husband resumed hurling abuses, she promptly intervened. "Hey, what's up? You shouldn't talk to this person like that. Let's get going." Reprimanding her ex-husband, who seemed oblivious, the woman dragged him away. I wondered if she knew my son based on her demeanor. When I asked my son, he claimed he didn't know her. Unable to comprehend, I decided to let go of the matter concerning my ex-husband and savor the moment. Afterward, I celebrated with my son and thoroughly enjoyed the day. I thought I wouldn't have any dealings with my ex-husband anymore, but a week later he called. I hadn't changed my phone number when I switched to a smartphone, intending to keep my ex-husband's number for a while and delete it later. However, with parenting and work, I had forgotten about it completely. Surprised by the call and considering we had nothing to talk about, I debated whether to answer. Out of curiosity, wondering why he would call now after all this time, I ultimately decided to pick up. Even though my ex-husband had never met John, the extended family seemed to hold a favorable opinion of him. Discussions about John were kept from my ex-husband, perhaps out of consideration, thinking the father might not be thrilled about a potential son-in-law. However, his new wife was aware of John and had shared the incident from a week ago with her brothers. The relatives were quite angry with my ex-husband, and the woman expressed her dissatisfaction. even mentioning the possibility of divorcing him. It's not surprising. When someone verbally abuses their own child and ex-wife, any sensible person would naturally consider divorce. It seems inevitable for Bob's wife to think he verbally abused her and their daughter too. Furthermore, my ex-husband Bob, who was about to retire, had a good job opportunity recommended by his relatives. However, due to this incident, it seemed like he might lose that opportunity. On the other hand, the brother of his current wife, a big-shot CEO, seems to be doing well. Bob had gotten a job through his connections and apparently made money easily thanks to that. However, because of this incident, it seems people no longer trust him, and he might not be able to get the job he was planning on. He reached out, suggesting that our son John should help him out in his time of trouble. However, Bob, who never really cared about our child and didn't even pay child support, just wanted to use him for his own convenience. I was beyond angry at Bob's audacity. After all those hurtful things he'd said, the very thought of living with him again made my skin crawl. Despite Bob suggesting that we get back together and live with John, I firmly declined, emphasizing that John doesn't owe him anything. I don't want to live a lonely life in my old age, Bob insisted. But I stood my ground, remembering his past actions. Since then, John and I have been living our lives smoothly. When I mentioned Bob's call to John, he told me that his relationship with his boss was still good. John was surprised to find out just how much his boss wanted him as a son-in-law. As for Bob, he has been kicked out by his second wife and is now struggling. Despite his desire for a lively retirement, he seems to be living a tough life alone, jobless, and with little savings. I had stopped caring about Bob, but remembering the things he did in the past, it felt like karma. As for me, life isn't exactly as I pictured when I married Bob, but I can say I'm truly happy now. Nowadays, I'm careful about my health so I don't become a burden to John, who's working hard. I enjoy my peaceful life living alone and look forward to the day John introduces me to my future daughter-in-law. And I get to meet my grandkids. Every day, I live my life happily and energetically.
At my age, with no position of responsibility, someone as incompetent as you is not needed in our company. I have prepared a termination letter. We will provide severance. Pack your things and leave immediately. The president's abusive tirade echoed through the office. Silently enduring the president's harsh words, arguing with such a person seemed futile. Understood. I'm terminated, I calmly stated. Quickly gathering my belongings, I left the office. To an outsider, I might have appeared defeated, a loser at the mercy of the president. However, I had already recognized her vulnerability. My name is Caroline. At 48 years old, most women my age are married with grown children or even becoming grandmothers. Yet I remain single. I've had my share of romantic relationships, but marriage never quite happened. Not that I lacked the desire, but with a fulfilling job and wonderful colleagues, I was content. A drastic change occurred a few months ago. The company, a family-run business, had always been led by the chairman's relatives. The chairman's son, daughter, and their spouses held executive roles, fostering a tight-knit company culture. This didn't mean non-relatives were mistreated. On the contrary, there were opportunities for advancement. The chairman's charismatic leadership kept us united, and we had no major complaints. The bond among colleagues was strong, and we worked together daily with a shared purpose. However, when the chairman passed away suddenly, his son took over as chairman, and the company faced an unexpected turn. The new president was Helena, the chairman's daughter. Previously unknown to the company, many of us were surprised by her appointment. Yet we learned she had a successful track record at a top-tier company, which somewhat justified the decision. At 38, Helena was also single, prompting speculation among colleagues about her character, perhaps a dedicated career woman or a tough, cold executive. However, her appearance at the inauguration was surprising. She resembled more of a club hostess with revealing attire and loud accessories. Her strong perfume lingered in the air, causing many to grimace. Her speech, influenced by her appearance, felt shallow, lacking commitment and passion for the company, leaving me uneasy. However, worrying wouldn't change things. Focusing on my work, I tried to move past the inauguration's aftermath and settled into my tasks. Yet Helena's unexpected visit to our department soon after heightened tensions. Ignoring everyone else, she zeroed in on Cecil, a colleague, making an announcement. "I like you. You stood out at the ceremony earlier, Cecil." "Such a cute name," Helena said, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. "How about joining me for lunch to celebrate my appointment?" Cecil turned pale, frozen in place, as did everyone else in the room. The atmosphere was tense with disbelief at what the president was suggesting. "Don't look so surprised," Helena continued casually. "I find being invited by the president quite endearing." She reached for Cecil's arm, clearly intending to leave immediately. Cecil managed to interject, his voice strained. "Please wait. I appreciate that offer, but I have urgent work to finish this morning. Could we possibly wait until break time? It's barely past 10 a.m. Helena's expression hardened slightly. "Is your work truly that urgent? If so, someone else can handle it. Lunch with the president is a far more valuable use of your time. I'll teach you what to prioritize," she insisted, gently pushing Cecil along despite his reluctance. When they returned hours later, it was well past 2 p.m. Cecil, 38 years old, divorced for a few years and now single, was admired for his refined looks that seemed to improve with age. Many female colleagues harbored secret crushes on him, celebrating his return to the dating scene after his divorce. While Helena's fondness for Cecil might have been understandable, her behavior was unbecoming of a president. The day's events revealed more about Helena's true character than anyone expected. To make up for the morning disruption, Cecil ended up working late, a consequence of Helena's actions that benefited no one. "Cecil, I've reserved a wonderful French restaurant for us today, the one with the chef I mentioned before. We better hurry or we'll be late," Helena announced, appearing frequently and forcefully to whisk Cecil away for lengthy lunches. "Helena, I appreciate the gesture, but I really need to focus on my work right now," Cecil replied politely, attempting to maintain his composure despite the disruption. As this became a regular occurrence, Helena would often occupy the seat beside Cecil, disrupting his workflow with her chatter. Colleagues displaced by Helena struggled to complete their tasks, often resorting to overtime. Gradually, a simmering discontent grew among the staff towards Helena. While no one dared to voice their frustrations openly, it was clear that many shared the same sentiment. "When exactly does Helena perform her presidential duties? It seems like she's not taking her job seriously at all," murmured a colleague with a skeptical glance towards Helena's office. "I found myself busy helping Cecil and others with their work in overtime. One day, while assisting Cecil, I tried to lighten the mood. 'Cecil, you've really been put through the ringer. It's tough being targeted by the wrong person,' I remarked sympathetically. Cecil responded apologetically, 'I'm so sorry for causing everyone trouble. I really appreciate your help, Caroline, especially since you have your own workload to manage. You don't need to apologize for anything. It's all because of that out-of-touch president.' Honestly, what was the chairman thinking making Helena president? I joked, sticking out my tongue playfully. Cecil managed a weak smile, the first I'd seen from him in a while. I noticed that smiles had become rare in our department lately, and the weight of these days lingered heavily on my mind. Determined to break the cycle, I decided to seek advice from Carl, the chairman and Helena's father. When I first joined the company, Carl was the executive vice president, and we occasionally had chats. Now, as chairman, our interactions had ceased, but I boldly went to see him to discuss Helena's problematic behavior. Knowing it might be impertinent, I hoped he would understand the employees' struggles. Carl, a dignified man and son of the previous revered chairman, responded dismissively. "I'm not here to listen to such complaints. You are to follow President Helena's lead, work for the company, and earn your salary. That's all. It's simple," he said curtly, sending me away. Disappointed and furious, I realized Carl, who had appointed Helena as president, was just another fool. The next day, Helena came again to invite Cecil to lunch, but our department was bustling with a crucial project deadline. Amidst the tense atmosphere, Helena's presence only fueled irritation, and some of my colleagues couldn't hide their annoyance. "I'm sorry, Helena. I really can't leave my work today. Could you perhaps dine alone?" Cecil tried to decline politely. Helena insisted, "It's fine. Someone else will cover for you." "Hey, you there, take over Cecil's work." Unbelievably, Helena approached me next, saying, Right now, both Cecil and I are swamped with work. No one in the department has the capacity to take on additional tasks. I'm sorry, but that's not possible, I firmly replied, meeting Helena's wide-eyed disbelief. Despite momentarily faltering under Helena's stern gaze, I knew I had to speak up. I said it's not possible. Cecil's tasks today are critical, and I have a pile of my own work to complete. Taking on Cecil's responsibilities is simply out of the question, I asserted firmly. Every time you pull Cecil away, our department's progress stalls, significantly affecting the company's performance. As president, you must be aware of this. We're receiving complaints about poor responsiveness from clients, and our credibility is suffering. If this continues, we'll be overtaken by our competitors, I continued, venting my frustrations. There was no turning back now. Do you even know who you're talking to? You know what happens when you speak against the president, right? Helena's voice, so different from the sweet tone she used with Cecil, was filled with intimidation as she retorted. I'm speaking out of concern for the company. We're all striving to improve performance. I can't comply with actions that will hinder our success. We need Cecil at his desk right now, I insisted, choosing my words carefully, mindful that she was still the president. Is that all you have to say? I'm shocked to find such a lowly employee among us, Helena sneered, snatching my employee badge to read my name. Caroline, huh? It figures you'd say such vulgar things. You're going to regret what you did today. With a sudden change in tone, Helena turned sweetly to Cecil, saying, Cecil, let's try again tomorrow. I'll book an Italian place. My mood's been spoiled by this silly little scene. With a fluttering wave, she left the department. Applause erupted around me as colleagues praised me, commenting on how refreshing and courageous it was to speak up. But I did feel relieved. Helena's words weighed heavily on me. I knew this wouldn't end without repercussions, Cecil said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Caroline, are you okay? His concern was evident, and it warmed my heart. Are you okay, Caroline? I know you spoke up for all of us, but now you're in the president's sights. I'm on your side, though. If anything happens, I'll be here to protect you, he reassured me with strength in his voice. His strong reassurance lightened my heart slightly, and I felt grateful for such a supportive colleague. With these colleagues by my side, I felt ready to face whatever might come next. However, Helena's retaliation came sooner and more straightforwardly than I expected. She showed up in our department the very next day with a harsh tone and words that cut deep. You, at your age, with no significant position, not proficient at work, just getting older and more out of sight, Helena began sharply. How dare you talk back to me? Someone who has remained a mere employee all these years is not needed in this company. Frankly, you're an eyesore. You're fired as of today. Pack your things and leave. I was astounded by the abrupt and harsh dismissal. Fired? I echoed in disbelief. With rough breath, Helena pulled out a piece of paper. Yes, but it's not wrongful termination. Don't bother suing. Here's your termination letter, and we'll even pay severance. Now, hurry up and leave, she commanded dismissively. That's too much, President Helena. Caroline is indispensable to this company. Cecil stepped forward, fists clenched in determination. Helena scoffed, dismissing Cecil's stance. Cecil, you're mistaken if you think it's wise to side with such an incompetent woman. It seems you've been influenced by her because you've worked together for too long. How pitiful. She's a detriment to this company, and it's only right she's fired. I stood silently, absorbing Helena's verbal abuse. Arguing with someone like her was futile. If you say my presence is detrimental to the company, then I must accept my dismissal, I replied calmly. Quickly packing my belongings, I left the office. Though I couldn't suppress my intense anger, I was determined not to let this end here. I had already identified Helena's weakness. The next day, I welcomed a refreshing morning, had breakfast, and cleaned my house. Glancing at the clock as it struck 10 a.m., my phone rang. The company's number flashed on the screen. The caller was easy to guess. It must be Helena. Slowly, I answered. Caroline. Oh, thank goodness you picked up. Listen about the firing yesterday. It was just a joke. I never imagined you'd take it seriously and actually not show up today. I'll overlook your tardiness, so please come to the office as usual. Helena spoke in the same controlling tone she used with Cecil. You're so honest, Caroline, to take such a joke seriously. Helena's voice quivered slightly. It wasn't a joke. I have the signed termination letter. Does the company sign such things as a joke? If so, that's terribly irresponsible. I began firmly, staring directly at Helena. A president who flirts with male employees and publicly humiliates an employee is disgraceful. I want nothing more to do with such a company." Helena was speechless at my words, so I pressed further. "I know everything that happened this morning in the office and that you'd come crying to me for help. I heard all about it from Cecil. Today was an especially important day for presenting our company's best product to a crucial client. Success would significantly boost our company, while failure would allow competitors to leapfrog us to industry leadership. Even Helena must have recognized this importance, attending the morning meeting to motivate everyone. She asked who was in charge of the presentation, but no one came forward, and the room fell silent. Of course, I was the presenter. When Helena realized this, she panicked. She asked if anyone else could handle the responsibility, but all she found were resignation letters from all employees upon hearing of my dismissal. Everyone had had enough of the company. "Please, if you're there, Caroline, the presentation can still go ahead. We don't have much time before the meeting with the client. I'll double your salary and you'll be treated as a director. Please come back," Helena pleaded hysterically, almost incomprehensibly. "Unfortunately, I have no intention of returning. Please handle it yourself. As president, you haven't worked properly and have been chasing employees around, decreasing performance. I don't think you have the capacity to manage it," I said firmly before hanging up. I dismissed her further calls without hesitation. It would be interesting to see how she managed alone. That evening, Helena and Carl came to my house. As I cautiously opened the door, Helena began, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive us," they pleaded tearfully. Apparently, the presentation had been a disaster from the moment Helena arrived alone. The client must have been skeptical, and just minutes into the presentation, they stormed out, disgusted with Helena's incompetence. They said they'd reconsider if you were involved. "Caroline, please, for the company's sake, come back," Helena pleaded. My anger erupted. "For the company? How can you say that? You've disrupted employees' work, fired me for speaking up, and caused everyone to turn against you due to your arrogance. This is the result of your actions. Please leave." As I attempted to close the door, Helena sprang up. "It's all because you interfered with my lunches with Cecil, embarrassing me in front of everyone. That's why I fired you. You got in the way of my lunches with Cecil. That's all it was." What a childish notion. I knew it, but hearing it directly from her made me feel sick. "I'm begging you to come back." Suddenly, Helena lunged at me but was swiftly stopped by Cecil, who had come out of concern. "Enough, please. I came because I was worried about Caroline, and I can't believe it's come to this," Cecil said, surprising both Helena and me. "Helena, let me make it clear. Dining or talking with you has been nothing but a pain because I have someone I like. I've told you many times, but you only looked at my appearance and never listened," Cecil confessed, leaving Helena paralyzed. Caroline and the other employees who resigned have already found new jobs. A competing company looking to expand was thrilled to hire us all. Everyone is talented, and they were delighted, I interjected firmly. "Caroline and I are not coming back. You're the reason she was unfairly thrown out of the company. Please don't show up in front of us again. If you don't leave, we'll call the police." Helena tried to say something but was pulled away by Carl, who was also pale. He was the fool who appointed Helena president and dismissed my desperate pleas. There was no room for sympathy without supporting employees, and missing a great opportunity, the company's reputation plummeted, leading to bankruptcy. I am sorry to the wonderful predecessor, but once the predecessor was gone, it was only a matter of time before it came to this, I concluded sadly. Helena and Carl disappeared, buried under immense debt, living lives I don't even want to imagine. Meanwhile, Cecil and I began dating. The confession that I was the person he cared for came as a sweet surprise after years of working together. Our relationship evolved from trusted colleagues to partners. I'm grateful I didn't rush into marriage when I was younger, as I've now found the best partner later in life. Life is unpredictable. Maybe Cecil and I will get married. That's what